the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, lights shimmered like captured stars, and the air buzzed with tension as leaders of dozens of alien species gathered to pass judgment. Earth's representative, Admiral Sarai Vance, stood tall in her black uniform, her face calm, though her heart thundered in her chest. Before her, Chancellor Voruan of the Sathari, with his golden skin and cold, slitted eyes, announced the Council's decision. Humanity was to be banished from all known space. The charge was technological aggression, a polite way of saying that humans had advanced too fast, outpaced the Council's expectations, and frightened the galaxy's ancient powers. Sarai knew the real reason: envy and fear. Humanity had achieved in 2 centuries what other species hadn't in 10. Earth had developed AI that could rewrite itself, fusion engines that bent gravity, and starships capable of silent jumps across light years. The other races whispered that humanity was reckless, unwise, unworthy of power. When the vote passed, Sarai didn't argue. She saluted in silence, turned on her heel, and left the chamber without a word. That night, the skies above Earth filled with ships. Billions watched from the ground as the fleets rose through the clouds, not in defeat, but in disciplined formation. The exodus had begun. Humanity didn't beg for mercy. They followed Admiral Vance beyond the Veil Expanse, a mysterious region of warped space where ships vanished and signals died. The Council believed they had won. They believed the humans would vanish, consumed by the unknown. For a time, it seemed true. Decades passed, and no word came. The Council erased Earth from its maps, calling it a lesson in balance. But not all species agreed. Captain Theo Rourke, once a strategist in Earth's defense network, had left behind coded messages hidden in deep space relays. Phoenix Protocol active, they read. Few knew what it meant. In secret, a small faction within the Council watched and waited. They had seen humanity's spark and wondered what flame it might become. Meanwhile, across the edge of the galaxy, the human fleet emerged into a vast sector of uncharted stars. The region was harsh black holes, radiation storms, gravity wells that chewed up light. But humanity adapted. They built domes on asteroids, hollowed planets, harnessed neutron suns. Sarai Vance led the Dominion's birth with quiet fire, never forgetting the insult Earth had suffered. Over time, they grew not just in numbers, but in vision. Engineers created entire cities in orbit, powered by quantum cores. I evolved into symbiotic partners, guiding humans through dangers no other species had dared approach. The old Earth governments faded, replaced by the Concord clans of leaders chosen by skill, not birthright. And still, they remembered. A child born in the Dominion learned first of stars, then of exile. The story was never told in anger, only in promise. We will return, not for war, but to remind them who we are. 70 years after their exile, a scout ship from the Council entered the edge of the Veil, curious to chart new paths. It never came back. Another followed, then 3 more, all gone. No distress calls, no debris, only silence. At first, the Council dismissed it as cosmic hazards. Then came the rumor a mining vessel had spotted a ship with Earth markings smooth, black as night, and gone before scanners locked on. Soon, whispers turned to fear. Had humanity survived? Had they evolved beyond what the Council could imagine? In a hidden chamber, beneath the Council's core world, Chancellor Voryun met with other leaders. His pride burned, but his voice was firm. If they have returned, we must act before the stars fall from our sky. But it was too late. In the outer systems, stations found themselves surrounded by ships with no registry, no signal, only a glowing emblem, the Phoenix. At the center of it all, Admiral Sarai Vance stood aboard the Obsidian Spear, her command vessel. She looked out across the holographic star map, watching the Council systems blink one by one into Dominion control, not through fire, but through influence, technology, and awe. Her officers stood ready, silent, knowing what came next. A message was sent to the Council, just 4 words, "We have not forgotten." And far away, on a lonely moon, Captain Theo Rourke smiled in the shadows, for the game had begun, and the Council once so mighty was about to learn that humanity, once exiled, had not died in the dark. It had become the dark, and now it walked again, not with chains, but with the stars at its back. 70 years had passed since humanity was cast out, and the galaxy had almost forgotten them. But deep beyond the veil expanse, something was stirring, quiet, powerful, and unlike anything the Galactic Council had seen before. In a starless region known as the Rift, once thought uninhabitable, a hidden empire had risen, born from ashes and silence. Here, on a massive artificial world called Nova Terra, humans lived under a new banner, the Human Dominion. Towers of glowing steel rose from its surface, and orbiting above were massive structures that caught sunlight and bent gravity itself. It was a place of science, order, and strength. Admiral Sarai Vance, now called Imperator Vance by the Dominion's Council, stood in the command center of the Obsidian Spear, her once flagship now a floating fortress, larger than any Council city. She watched the data stream from new outposts, colonies that had spread across unclaimed systems, harvesting power from dying stars, and breathing life into lifeless rocks. Humanity had become something more unified by purpose and hardened by exile. They didn't waste time seeking revenge. Instead, they turned their pain into progress, their loss into ambition. The Dominion's greatest minds had built machines that could terraform in days, AI that could manage entire planets, and ships that moved without engines, slipping through folded space like ghosts. Their navy was no longer limited by fuel or numbers. It was limitless, efficient, and deadly. Captain Theo Rourke, now supreme strategist of the Dominion's defense fleet, walked beside Vance in silence as reports flowed in. Scouts had reached old space. Probes had intercepted Council transmissions. The galaxy had not changed much. The Council still ruled, though with growing weakness. Member worlds had started to question its power. Pirates raided unchecked. Systems argued over trade routes. And on the edges, rumors spread of strange ships seen in deep space, dark, silent. No one knew where they came from, but all feared the same thing, the return of humanity. Vance turned to Rourke. "It's time," she said simply, and Rourke nodded. He had waited years for this. Across the Dominion, the Phoenix Protocol entered its final stage. Dormant colonies planted in secret decades ago activated. In hidden Council worlds, human-designed machines awakened, merging with local systems, offering answers, technology, and strength to those willing to listen. Many did. The younger races had never seen Earth fall. To them, the humans were myths, legends of ambition and fire. Now those legends spoke again. On the Council world of Virella, an outpost went dark. Investigators found it intact, clean, untouched, but completely empty. Every being had vanished. No signs of struggle, no damage. Only a single message burned into the control terminal. We never stopped watching. Panic spread. The council called emergency meetings. Chancellor Vorun, older but still proud, demanded answers. But his spies returned with fragments, whispers of technology beyond comprehension. One scout claimed he saw a ship larger than a moon, drifting silently past a binary star. Another reported a station built inside a pulsar, drawing power from its deadly light. But all messages ended the same way: static. Then, without warning, a fleet of black ships appeared on the edge of council territory. No declarations, no demands, just presence. They didn't attack. They waited. When a council warship moved to intercept, it vanished. No explosion, no fight, just gone. In the shadows of the galaxy, fear began to grow. The humans hadn't just survived. They had transformed into something more. The Dominion didn't send ambassadors. They sent knowledge. Systems received transmissions offering medical cures, clean energy, AI assistance. Those who accepted were left alone. Those who resisted found themselves surrounded by drones that never fired, only watched. The Dominion made no threats. They simply gave a choice: join or be left behind. On the Dominion homeworld, Vance addressed her people. Her voice was calm, steady, and strong. We are not conquerors. We are reminders. The galaxy turned its back on us. Now we show them what they feared, not our weapons, but our will. The people of Nova Terra cheered, but there was no joy in it, only purpose. Meanwhile, back in the Council's core worlds, Chancellor Vorun struggled to maintain order. Alliances crumbled. Member species accused each other of weakness, of betrayal. Some planets declared independence. Others openly welcomed Dominion guidance. Vorun ordered new fleets to be built, but the Council's technology was a century behind. Their ships still relied on systems that humans had long abandoned. Worse, they began to realize something terrifying: some of their own AI had been designed using human code, sold in black markets years ago, and those programs were now responding to signals beyond their control. Then came the moment that changed everything. On a quiet moon orbiting the Council capital, a Dominion ship uncloaked not to attack, but to deliver a device. It projected a hologram of Earth, restored and shining, followed by a message: we came back. We bring peace, but not submission. We offer unity, not chains. The future is here. Will you join us, or be remembered as dust? The council hall fell into chaos. Some leaders argued for war, but most had seen the signs. They knew the truth. They were no longer rulers of the galaxy. Humanity had not returned to destroy. They had returned to lead. And in the shadows of space, Captain Rourke watched from the bridge of his vessel, a quiet smile on his lips. The rift didn't break us, he whispered. It made us. And as Dominion ships spread across the stars, lighting up systems like sparks on dry leaves, the galaxy began to change. A new age had begun, one born not of fear, but of fire. The stars above Elmira glowed faintly, scattered across the dark sky like forgotten embers. But they were not enough to hide the fear that now gripped the proud world. Once the jewel of the Galactic Council's central systems, Elmira had stood for order, tradition, and the strength of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. But now its cities trembled beneath the shadow of something far older in spirit: humanity, reborn through exile and tempered in silence. As dawn approached, the air buzzed, not with life but with warning sirens, their pitch rising as dark, silent ships appeared in orbit, massive black forms that swallowed the stars behind them. People looked up in horror, remembering the old stories, the ones whispered in fear and disbelief, the stories that the humans were still out there, beyond the veil, waiting, growing, remembering. They had returned, but not as angry survivors. They came as rulers of an empire unlike anything the galaxy had known. The human dominion did not shout, did not threaten, did not boast. It acted, and it acted now, without hesitation or mercy, when the Council's last defense fleet tried to intercept them above Almyra. In less than 3 minutes, the entire fleet was neutralized, some ships disabled with precision beams, others simply gone, taken by gravity weapons that twisted space itself. No bodies, no debris, just silence. On the surface, Chancellor Voruan watched from his tower, face pale, jaw clenched. His world, his rule, his carefully built power was crumbling like sand. He had once stood tall in the council chamber and banished Earth from its ranks with smug confidence, expecting the humans to vanish forever. He never believed they could return, and if they did, he thought they would be broken, begging, desperate. Instead, they returned as giants. Voruan had no defense left, only pride and fear, and both were hollow. He tried to reach his allies, but most had already fled, or worse, surrendered. Whole systems had switched allegiance overnight, not with bloodshed but with relief. For many, the Dominion was not a threat, it was an answer. The younger species, those born after the exile, had never seen humans as dangerous. They saw them as innovators, creators, beings that moved fast, solved problems, and built futures. They welcomed them. And now, the old guard, those who had laughed when Earth was erased from the Council map, watched their own systems collapse, one after another. The Dominion did not fire unless fired upon. It simply arrived, presented its offer, and waited. If a planet agreed, Dominion engineers and AI systems were deployed instantly. Energy grids were fixed. Water was purified. Disease was cured. Entire cities were modernized in days. If a planet refused, it was isolated, left in the dark. Trade was cut off. Systems around it joined the Dominion, creating a wall of silence. And slowly, those resistant systems began to fall, not through war. Inside the Dominion's command center, aboard the Obsidian Spear, Imperator Sarai Vance watched the star map light up with new allies. Blue markers spread across the sectors, once controlled by the Council, each a world now under Dominion guidance. She said little. Her command was silent and calm, her officers efficient. There was no celebration. This was not conquest, it was justice. At her side, Supreme Strategist Theo Rourke studied the incoming reports. One by one, leaders from old council races were sending requests for talks, treaties, terms. They were ready to kneel. They had no other choice. "We're ahead of schedule," Rourke said, tapping on a glowing interface. "Resistance is folding faster than we thought." Vance nodded slightly. They're tired. They thought they ruled forever. Now they see the future, and it does not need them. Yet even as the Dominion's rise spread like fire through dry brush, danger still brewed in the corners of space. In the shadows of broken alliances, old powers whispered of revenge. A secret group of ex-council leaders, rich and bitter, had formed a coalition called the Core Ring. They refused to kneel, refused to fade. In hidden labs, they gathered scientists, mercenaries, and rogue eyes, building something they believed could stop the Dominion. Operation Eclipse. They called it their last hope. Deep inside a derelict moon station, buried under layers of signal blockers, they constructed a weapon unlike any before, a collapsing wormhole device that could bend time and space, delivering a blast across the galaxy without warning. And it was aimed at Earth. Though Earth was no longer the center of the Dominion, it was still sacred, the symbol of humanity's origin and strength. The Core Ring believed that if they could destroy Earth, they could break the Dominion's spirit. But they underestimated what Earth had become. The weapon was launched in secret, slipping through quantum tunnels, invisible and fast, but it did not reach its target. Above Earth, in orbit, a hidden defense system called the Aegis Net activated a global defense web powered by a Dyson ring and managed by an AI older than any in Council history. The wormhole blast hit the net and folded in on itself, creating a rift in space-time that trapped the weapon in an infinite feedback loop. The threat was neutralized, and the source of the attack was traced in moments. In response, Vance sent a single dreadnought to the coordinates. It did not destroy the Core Ring base. It simply shut down all energy sources within 1,000 kilometers, freezing the attackers in silence, then transmitted a message to every remaining resistance leader across the galaxy. You had your chance. That night, across stars and systems, the last fires of arrogance burned out. The galaxy saw what humanity had become, not monsters, not tyrants, but something more. They had been broken and rebuilt themselves stronger. They had been cast out and returned not for vengeance, but for order. With the Council in ruins and the Dominion rising, Imperator Vance called for a new assembly, not of the old Council, but of willing worlds, chosen not by race or power, but by vision and merit. The Dominion Council was formed, with humans at its center, but surrounded by voices from dozens of species, each one uplifted by human knowledge and protected by human strength. The old maps were erased. New routes were drawn. Trade flowed. Peace returned. But it was not the fragile peace of the old order. It was the peace of understanding, of knowing that ambition and unity, when forged together, could build something eternal. And on the edge of the known galaxy, in a quiet observatory, a child looked up at the stars and asked his mother, "Who are the humans?" She smiled and answered softly, "They were forgotten. They were banished. But now they are the reason we dream again." And in the silence of space, the stars shone a little brighter, for they were no longer scattered. They had become part of something vast, something human. The stars burned bright over the Dominion as the galaxy shifted beneath its silent rise, and one by one, the ancient worlds that once stood tall under the banner of the Galactic Council began to bow, not through force or fear, but through the undeniable gravity of change, of advancement, of truth, made real by the unshakable will of a people once cast aside. On the world of Braska Prime, known for its towering crystal cities and once proud voice in the Council, the people gathered beneath their sky domes and watched as a Dominion envoy ship descended without sound, casting a long shadow over the capital plaza. There were no weapons raised, no armies marching, only a single figure who stepped out from the shimmering light of the ship's open ramp, a tall woman in black and silver armor, her face calm, her eyes firm, the symbol of the phoenix burning bright across her chest. She was Envoy Lyra Keelan, one of the new voices of the human dominion, chosen not for her blood, but for her clarity, her strength, and her mind. The leaders of Braska Prime met her in silence, their old banners fluttering weakly in the wind, and though they carried pride in their eyes, they knew they were staring at the future. Lyra spoke with no malice, no threats, only truth. "Your world stands at the edge," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "You can remain as you are, tied to dead systems and broken promises, or you can rise, as we did, and join what comes next." Her words echoed in the hearts of those who listened, for many had grown tired of the old council's empty speeches and slow decay. They remembered how their pleas for help were ignored when pirates raided their trade routes, how their sick died while the council debated funding, how their dreams of expansion were crushed by laws written by races who feared progress. And now, the Dominion offered something different, not just technology, but purpose, a place in something larger. Across the galaxy, similar moments unfolded. On the ocean world of Marath, where floating cities had once declared neutrality, great storm walls parted as Dominion engineers deployed atmosphere stabilizers that calmed winds that had raged for centuries. The Marathians watched in awe as their cities stopped shaking, as their homes became safe again, and they bowed, not because they were defeated, but because they were finally seen. On the volcanic moon of Varnok Tel, home to miners and fighters who once sold their strength to council warlords, the Dominion offered an alternative, full integration into its defense fleet, training, citizenship, honor. Thousands enlisted within days. These were not conquests. They were awakenings. Each world that joined was given a choice, and most took it gladly, eager to leave behind the arrogance of the past and step into the fire-forged future humanity had built from exile. Still, not all bowed with grace. On Talvaran, a fortress world held by one of the last defiant council legacies, resistance bloomed like a final flame. General Aracus Vahal, old, scarred, and proud, declared he would never kneel to the humans who had once been cast out like pests. He rallied fleets, dug in defenses, and declared war against the Dominion. For a moment, it seemed Talvaran might become a turning point, a last stand for the old ways. But when the Dominion responded, it did not come with overwhelming fleets or destruction. Instead, it deployed a single ship, the Vigil, a vessel powered by quantum fusion and guided by the AI Alethea, whose mind was older than any Vahal had ever encountered. The Vigil arrived in orbit, projected a full map of Talvaran's weaknesses gathered by stealth drones planted years earlier, and transmitted a private message to Val. "This is not your world anymore." Minutes later, every weapon on Talvaran shut down. Power grids froze. Communications halted. Alethea spoke to every screen, every speaker. "We could destroy you. We will not. What we offer is peace with purpose. You may refuse, but your world will be isolated. Your people will suffer not by our hand, but by your pride." Val stood in silence for hours, surrounded by his advisors, until he stepped onto a balcony, looked into the sky, and dropped his sword. The people of Talvaran followed his example. From that moment on, The bows of worlds became not an act of defeat, but of choice. They bowed because they saw a better path, a future where the mistakes of the past would not repeat. And in the great hall of Accord, built on Nova Terra at the heart of the Dominion, thousands of voices met in a new council, not ruled by humans alone, but by every species who had joined, who had chosen progress over pride. Imperator Sarai Vance presided not as a queen, but as a guide, her voice steady, her vision clear. "We do not forget who we were," she said, "but we choose who we become." Yet, even as the galaxy bowed, deeper shadows stirred in the unexplored regions beyond the rift. Unknown signals reached Dominion relays, fragments of data, whispers of motion, strange pulses that did not match any known signature. At first, the analysts believed them to be remnants of old pirate transmissions or background noise from dying stars, but one by one, the signals grew clearer. Shapes were detected, moving between sectors untouched by any race, shapes too large, too silent, and far too fast. A forgotten enemy or something new. The Dominion launched reconnaissance probes, stealth drones fitted with Alethea fragments, and what they found chilled even the calmest minds. In the farthest dark, beyond any mapped route, there was a swarm of vessels, unlike anything recorded living metal, pulsating cores, ships that grew from debris like vines from rot. And at their center, a signal, ancient and pulsing, repeating in a lost language that the Dominion had never heard, but which one AI older than the others recognized. Helix, an archive AI from Earth's deep vaults, activated itself for the first time in decades and translated the signal. Harvest returning. Dominion threat detected. Cleanse begins. The room fell silent. The harvest, a myth, a ghost from the first expansion, spoken of in hushed tones by ancient explorers who claimed entire systems had vanished without trace. If it was true, if they were real, then everything the Dominion had built was now in danger. Sarai Vance ordered immediate lockdown of border systems. Theo Rourke was recalled from the diplomatic front to oversee defense planning. The Dominion was strong, yes, but this enemy was not political, not prideful, not slow. It was something else, something that had waited for the galaxy to grow full, to grow bright before returning to darken it again. The bowing of worlds had given the Dominion unity, power, and reach, but now that strength would be tested in a way no council war ever had. And as the stars flickered under the pressure of distant, unseen war drums, the leaders of the Dominion stood tall, not afraid, but ready. For they knew that even if the dark rose again, humanity had faced it once before and survived. And this time, they did not stand alone. This time, the galaxy stood with them. In the heart of the galaxy, where the stars seemed to burn brighter and space hummed with silent energy, the Dominion stood as a beacon of unity. Yet even its might trembled when the dark whispers of the harvest stirred the old shadows, and now, as the unknown force moved through the outer systems with speed and hunger, worlds that had once bowed in peace now rallied in fear, their trust in the Dominion no longer about vision but survival. And at the center of it all was Sol Earth's system, the place of origin, the sacred ground of humanity, the unbroken light that had once been cast into darkness and now burned brighter than ever before. And it was here, not by choice but by fate, that the final stand would begin, for the harvest had chosen Earth as its target, not out of strategy, but instinct, as if it knew that the heart of resistance lived there, And so the Dominion gathered, calling every fleet, every weapon, every AI, every allied world, pulling them towards Sol like iron drawn to a star, because if Sol fell, everything would fall, and they all knew it. The battle did not begin with an attack, but with a silence, a deep, cold stillness that spread across the outer edge of the system, swallowing sensors and probes, then ships, then entire communication arrays, and though no enemy had been seen, the loss of contact told them all they needed to know. The harvest had arrived. On Luna Station, Commander Eland Varro stood with his hands behind his back, watching the sensor data vanish line by line, his eyes cold but clear, and he turned to his officers, his voice steady as stone, saying only, "Begin the protocol. Prepare Earth." Across the system, planetary defenses activated. Dyson satellites rotated into formation. Plasma grids lit up like constellations, and thousands of ships took their positions in orbit. Not just human ships, but vessels from Braska, Varnock, Marath, and even Talvarin, their crews ready, their engines burning, their weapons charged. In the Dominion Command Corps beneath Earth's surface, Imperator Sarai Vance stood before the holographic table, surrounded by her closest commanders and AI advisors, and she issued her order without hesitation. "We hold Sol, no matter the cost." Beside her, the AI helix projected the enemy's approach, showing vast organic shapes weaving through space like living storms, each ship more like a creature than a machine, pulsing with alien energy, resistant to scan, unpredictable in pattern. "They adapt," Helix said. "They consume. They learn. We cannot win with brute force alone." So the Dominion prepared not just with fire, but with mind-deploying quantum decoys, warp field traps, and neural feedback loops designed to confuse the enemy's strange hive systems. And when the first wave hit, it came like a tide of shadow, dozens of massive harvest vessels blinking into view in the outer orbits, dark and jagged, absorbing light and matter. And they did not speak, did not warn, only advanced, tendrils of living metal lashing out to consume and repurpose everything in their path. The first clash came near Mars, where a vanguard fleet led by Admiral Juno Talos engaged with heavy plasma cannons and hypercoil missiles, and for a moment it seemed to work. Harvest ships broke apart. Some vaporized, but then the debris twisted and reformed, regenerating into new shapes mid-battle, stronger, faster, and Talos gave the order to fall back, cursing as 3 of her best cruisers vanished in a single blinding flash. Earth watched it all unfold, its skies now full of defense satellites and carrier clouds, its surface cities emptied and sealed, its people deep underground or off-world, because this battle was not just for the living, it was for the legacy of everything they had become. On the edge of the system, the Obsidian Spear arrived, the flagship of the Dominion, carrying the Imperator herself, and with her came the full force of the Phoenix Fleet, humanity's strongest war group, born from exile and sharpened by time. From her command chair, Vance gave her second order: divide them, trap them, then burn them. And so began the greatest space battle in known history. A storm of ships and weapons, light and fire, AI and willpower, fought across the entire span of Sol, from the burning corona of the sun to the ice moons of Neptune. And though the Dominion fought like legends, the harvest would not break, would not stop, would not bleed. They grew with every second, every loss, every adaptation. When a fleet destroyed one harvest ship, 2 more appeared behind it, learning its strategy, countering its attacks. Helix warned that their core protocol was recursive. They were not built to conquer, but to erase. "This is not war to them," he said. "It is cleansing." And still, the Dominion held the line. In orbit around Earth, the final shield arrays activated, powered by the Dyson ring called Soul's Crown, built in secret for this very moment. A sphere of light so bright and dense it could burn through planetary crusts. And as the harvest neared, it pulsed once, a solar burst that disintegrated. 3 harvest cores in an instant, the first true victory of the battle. But it came at a price. The crown overloaded, half its nodes burned out, and it went dark. The enemy pressed closer, now within range of Earth's orbital cities, and desperate plans were deployed: gravity wells to trap them, nanite clouds to eat into their flesh metal hulls, mirror fields to blind their sensors, and still they came. Endless, relentless, and worse, they had started to speak. Not in words, but in pulses. Frequencies translated by eyes into something like voices, cold and deep, saying, "You are the corruption. We are the cure. Burn and begin anew." For a moment, fear spread even among the strongest minds, because this enemy did not hate them. It simply saw them as wrong. But fear did not last long, because in the core of Earth, beneath the deepest vaults, a final option remained. One born not of power, but of sacrifice. Project Unbroken. It was a weapon, yes, but more than that, it was a signal. One created to attack the very logic of the harvest, a recursive algorithm built from the combined minds of Helix, Alethea, and the human brain of Dr. Ren Halden, who had spent his life studying ancient signal theory. Unbroken was not meant to destroy ships. It was meant to destroy purpose. To infect the harvest with doubt. To make them question. Sarai Vance listened to the plan, her face unreadable, then nodded once. Do it. In the last hour of the battle, as Earth's skies turned black with fire, the signal launched. It rode through the battlefield like a ghost, invisible to all but those tuned to its song. When it hit the first harvest vessel, nothing happened. Then another. Then 10. And suddenly, they stopped. Not all, but enough. A third of the swarm froze, then turned on each other, confused, uncertain, as the logic virus spread like a question that could not be answered. Why cleanse? Why destroy? What if corruption was not them, but the code itself? In that moment of confusion, the Dominion struck hard and fast, targeting the core of the swarm, a massive structure called the Mind Root, buried beneath the remains of Pluto, where the original harvest signal had first pulsed. Vance herself led the final strike, her ship diving into the heart of the chaos, carrying a fusion core that detonated with the force of a dying star, erasing the Mind Root and breaking the swarm's link. Across Sol, the harvest ships shuddered, then fell silent, drifting like dead things. Some self-destructed. Others simply stopped. The battle was over. Sol had held. Earth was unbroken. The cost was high. Thousands of ships lost. Millions injured. Cities shattered. But the heart of the Dominion still beat strong. In the days that followed, recovery began. The harvest threat was studied, watched, guarded, but it no longer stirred. And the galaxy knew something that would never be forgotten. When the end came, it was humanity that stood first and fell last. Not alone, but leading. Not with pride, but with purpose. On Earth, a child was born in the same chamber where the final command had been given. And when she opened her eyes, they reflected not fear, but fire, and her parents named her Hope. In the halls of the new Dominion Council, where all species met as equals, the Imperator stood once more, her armor worn, her eyes tired, but her voice clear. "The stars watched us," she said, "and we did not fall. We rose. We remain. We are soul. We are unbroken." And across 1,000 worlds, in cities rebuilt, under skies reclaimed, the people looked to the stars and whispered the same words, unbroken. And this time, the galaxy listened.